Ethan had never expected his life to change again. He had spent the past few years trying to forget the things he had seen and experienced, to erase the memories of a life he had left behind. The quiet suburbs of his town were the perfect place to start over, a place where he could simply be human again. No more strange planets, no more alien politics, no more traveling across the stars. His days had become routine. Work at the small tech company, the occasional beer with friends, and the comfort of his small house, tucked away in the corner of a peaceful neighborhood. It was a simple existence, a type of life most people took for granted. Yet despite the normalcy, there were nights when Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the memories of the Zyran. He could still remember the first time he was taken suddenly and without warning. The alien ship, its cold metal surface, and bright lights, the strange language spoken by beings he could barely understand. And then, Queen Rixa. She had been his captor at first, but somehow, over time, she had become something more: a friend, a guide, a ruler who would change his life forever. But that was all in the past, or so he thought. It was a typical Saturday afternoon when it happened. Ethan had just finished mowing the lawn and was sitting in his backyard, enjoying the warm sun and the quiet, when he heard it, the unmistakable hum of a ship. But this wasn't any ordinary plane or helicopter. This was different. It was too low, too loud. His heart skipped a beat. He turned, his eyes scanning the sky. The sky above him was darkening, even though it was still afternoon. A large shape was descending slowly. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the ship grew larger and larger, its size defying reason. It was the same kind of ship he had seen years ago, the one that had taken him from Earth. To the stars! He ran to the edge of the yard, his heart pounding. What was happening? Was this a joke? Maybe it was some kind of elaborate prank. But deep down, he knew better. He had seen this kind of ship only once before. There could be only one person who would come in something like this: Queen Rixa. He didn't know whether to feel relief or fear. It had been years since he last saw her, since he last set foot on Xerexia, the alien world that had once felt so strange and terrifying, but also strangely welcoming. He had left that life behind. He was human again, a normal person. But now she was here, and there was no ignoring the fact that his life was about to change once again. The ship landed with a soft thud in the middle of his backyard, blocking the view of the neighboring houses. The ground trembled as the massive vessel's engines powered down, and the hum gradually faded. Ethan stood frozen in place, his heart racing in his chest. He didn't know what to do. The air around him felt charged, like something momentous was about to happen. The ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and a figure stepped out, tall and regal, with a presence that immediately commanded attention. Was dressed in flowing dark robes, her alien features elegant and sharp. Her long hair, silver like moonlight, flowed down her back. There was no mistaking it. It was Queen Rixa. Her golden eyes locked onto Ethan, and for a brief moment, everything else faded away. She smiled, a mixture of warmth and authority. There was something about her gaze that made him feel both comforted and unsettled at the same time. "I missed you so much, human. Let's go back," her voice rang out. The words familiar yet foreign, just as they had been the first time they met. Ethan stood frozen, unsure of how to respond. His mind raced, replaying memories he thought he had locked away. Back? Go back where? He had left Xerexia. He had left her. He had built a new life on Earth. This was crazy. "What are you doing here?" He finally managed to ask, his voice shaky, trying to sound like he wasn't about to collapse from sheer shock. Rixa took a step forward, her gaze softening. "I came for you. The Zyran need you. I need you." Ethan's mind spun. The Zyran. Her people. He hadn't thought about them in years. They had been at the brink of war when he left. Would things have gotten worse without him? Why would they need a human like him now? "You need me?" Ethan repeated, incredulous. "I haven't seen you in years, Rixa. I'm not that person anymore. I've got a life here. I've got a future. Rixa's eyes narrowed slightly, a flash of something dark passing across her face. And yet you're the only one who can help me now. You're the only one who understands. The Zyren are falling apart. My enemies grow stronger every day. You were the only one who could see beyond the politics of our empire. You were the only one who saw what we truly needed. Ethan took a step back, his hand subconsciously reaching for the fence behind him. I don't know what you expect. From me, I'm not. I can't just go back. I've built something here. I understand, Rixa said softly. Her voice wasn't demanding, but it was firm. But the universe does not wait for us to be ready. She stepped forward again, closing the distance between them. You've seen the war. You've seen the devastation we face.
Oh.
Survive much longer without change, without your help. I need you, Ethan. The Zyren needs you. The entire galaxy does. Ethan felt his heart tighten in his chest. He remembered the first time he had seen her, how she had looked at him as if he were the key to something much larger than either of them had realized. Back then, he had been nothing but a pawn in a game of politics. But now, it seemed the stakes had only grown higher. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to tell her that he couldn't leave his life behind again, that he couldn't go back to a war-ravaged world, to the uncertainty and chaos that had defined his time on Xerexia. But something inside him, some distant memory of the person he had once been, told him that this was not a choice he could easily ignore. Rix's eyes softened again. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You are not the same man you were when you first left. But you are still human, and that is more than enough. Ethan looked up into her eyes, and for the first time since she had arrived, he felt a flicker of something he couldn't ignore. The same connection he had once felt with her, the same pull, was still there, buried deep beneath the surface. But was it enough? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The weight of it threatened to crush him. Please, Rixa said, her voice now barely a whisper. I need you. Come back with me. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling a lump rise in his throat. His life here, on Earth, was comfortable. It was normal. It was human. But what was humanity without the chance to change something, to make a difference? For a long moment he stood there, caught between two worlds. One was familiar, safe, and everything he had ever wanted. The other was alien, unknown, and full of risk. But it was also where he had once made a difference. With a heavy sigh, Ethan made his decision. All right, he said quietly, his voice steady. I'll go with you. Rix's smile returned, warmer this time, filled with relief and something deeper, more meaningful. Thank you, she whispered, and just like that, Ethan's old life was left behind. Ah! As he followed Queen Rixa onto the alien ship, the familiar sights of his quiet suburban life faded into the distance, and he was once again swept into the unknown. Ethan's heart raced as the alien ship lifted off, leaving Earth behind. The familiar sights of his quiet suburban town slowly faded into a blur. He stood near the back of the ship, staring out through the window, his mind swirling with confusion, excitement, and dread. He had left everything behind: his job, his friends, his peaceful life. All of it was gone now, replaced by the cold metal walls of a ship bound for an alien planet. Queen Rixa stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the stars outside. The soft hum of the engines vibrated through the ship, the only sound in the otherwise silent cabin. Ethan glanced at her. She hadn't said much since they left Earth, and he wasn't sure what to say either. There were so many questions swirling in his mind, but none of them seemed to have an easy answer. Rixa, he began cautiously, breaking the silence. Why did you come for me now? Why didn't you just let me live my life on Earth? Rixa turned her golden eyes toward him, her expression serious but not unkind. Because things have changed, Ethan. The Zyren Empire is in danger, and without your help, we may not survive. There are factions within my court, powerful people who do not want change. They will destroy everything I've worked for if we do not act now. Ethan listened carefully, his mind trying to process her words. It was hard to believe that the queen he once knew, the one who had shown him kindness and respect, was now facing such challenges. Rixa was a leader, one of the most powerful beings he had ever encountered. And yet, it seemed like she was losing control of her own empire. He thought about his life on Earth, the peaceful existence he had carved out after his time on Xerxia. He had left the chaos behind, returned to normalcy, and now, here he was again, caught up in something far larger than himself. "So, you want me to help you then?" he asked slowly. "You want me to fix everything?" She shook her head, her long silver hair flowing with emotion. "No, Ethan, you cannot fix everything, but you can help guide us. You have something that the Zyran lacks: perspective. See things differently, and we need that now more than ever." Ethan felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. What did she mean by perspective? He was just a human, an outsider who had happened to land in their world by accident. He didn't have any special powers or abilities that would make him any more qualified to solve their problems than anyone else. But Rixa was looking at him as though he held the key to something crucial. It made him uncomfortable. He had no idea what he could offer her. But looking into her eyes, he knew there was no turning back now. "What exactly do you want me to do?" he asked, trying to understand. Rixa hesitated before speaking again. "I need you to help me unite the Empire. There are factions in my court who would rather see Xerxia fall than see me succeed. They do not believe in change, and they are willing to destroy anything that stands in their way. If I can't win them over, the Empire will collapse, and with it, the future of our people." Ethan sighed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of the responsibility she was placing on him. "So, you want me to be your diplomat? Your ... advisor?" She nodded. "Yes, you understand how to think outside the box. Ethan, the Zyran are a proud people, and their ways are old, rigid. But you've seen how humans solve problems. You've seen how we adapt when faced with impossible odds. That's why I need you." Ethan didn't know whether to feel flattered or terrified. The idea of being involved in galactic politics, of advising a queen on matters of life and death, was overwhelming. At the same time, he knew there was no turning back. "So where do we start?" he asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Rixa smiled slightly. "First, we need to get to Xerxia. Once we're there, we'll begin to navigate the political landscape. I'll introduce you to my advisors, and you'll begin working with them to understand the situation. After that, we'll make a plan." Nodded, though he still felt uneasy. The whole situation felt surreal. Only a few days ago, he had been mowing his lawn and enjoying a quiet afternoon. Now he was heading to a distant planet to become entangled in the politics of an alien empire. As the ship traveled through the vast emptiness of space, Ethan found himself thinking about Earth. He missed it. He missed the simple pleasures. Quiet mornings, the feeling of grass beneath his feet, the smell of rain on the ground. All of it seemed so far away now. But then he remembered Rixa, and the thought of being with her again, of helping her through the struggles she faced, gave him a sense of purpose. Maybe this wasn't just a mistake. Maybe he could make a difference. Maybe he was meant to be here. Hours passed, and the journey through space continued. Ethan couldn't help but marvel at the vastness of the universe. Looking out the window, he could see the stars stretching out before them like tiny dots of light in the endless black. It was beautiful in a way he couldn't quite explain. The scale of everything was staggering. How had he ever thought his life on Earth was important? Compared to this, eventually the ship began to slow, and Rixa turned toward him. "We are approaching Xerxia," she said. Her voice had a certain calm to it, but Ethan could sense the tension underneath. The real challenge was about to begin. Ethan took a deep breath, bracing himself for what lay ahead. The unknowns were many, and the stakes were high. Idea if he was ready for what Rixa needed him to do. But there was no turning back now. The ship entered Xerexia's atmosphere, and Ethan could see the planet below, a vast, vibrant world teeming with life. Towering cities of gleaming metal and stone stretched across the surface, while vast forests and oceans dotted the landscape. It was a world of contrasts, a place where the old and the new coexisted in a delicate balance. As the ship descended toward the capital city Xylora, Ethan's nerves began to tighten. This was it. This was the heart of the Zyran Empire. They landed in a massive hangar, surrounded by armed guards and officials. The ship's hatch opened, and Rixa stepped out first, her regal presence commanding attention. Ethan followed closely, behind, feeling the weight of all the eyes upon him. These were the people who would judge him, who would either accept him or see him as a threat. Rixa turned to him. "Stay close. The court will want to see you, and they will not be kind." Ethan nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew one thing for sure. His life was no longer his own. It had been swept away by the tide of destiny, and now all he could do was hold on and hope he could make a difference. As they walked toward the palace, the gates slowly opened, and the sounds of 1,000 voices filled the air. The court was waiting. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had once known was far behind him. This was a new world, and whether he was ready or not, he was about to become a part of it. Zyrexia's capital, Xylora, was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The city sprawled across the planet's surface, its towering buildings reaching toward the sky, each one gleaming with an alien design that felt both ancient and futuristic. Massive bridges spanned over rivers of liquid metal, and the streets were bustling with Zyran citizens' toll. Graceful beings with long, flowing limbs and strange patterns of skin that shimmered in the sunlight as Ethan stepped out of the ship. Alongside Rixa, he couldn't help but feel small. He was just one human among a sea of aliens, and yet it was clear that he was meant to stand out. He had already noticed the curious glances from the Zyran soldiers and officials who had gathered. Around the landing platform, some of them whispered to one another, their eyes flicking between him and Rixa. Ethan felt the weight of their scrutiny. He had never liked being the center of attention, and here, in this foreign world, it felt even more intense. But Rixa seemed unfazed. She walked with the confidence of a ruler, her presence commanding respect. "Stay close," she murmured to him, her voice a soft whisper that barely carried over the noise of the bustling city. "The court is waiting. Cannot afford to show weakness." Ethan nodded, trying to keep his nerves in check. He had agreed to come with her, to help her navigate the political turmoil of her empire. But now, as they walked toward the palace, he wondered just how much he was really capable of. He was a human in an alien world, an outsider with no training. In politics, warfare, or diplomacy.
What
could he possibly do here that would make a difference? But as they entered the grand hall of the palace, he began to understand why Rixa had brought him. The throne room was enormous, with high ceilings that stretched impossibly upward, adorned with alien symbols and holographic projections. The floor was a gleaming, polished black stone, and at the far end of the room sat the Zyran High Court, a group of the most powerful and influential individuals in the Empire. They sat in towering chairs made of translucent alien materials, their eyes glowing with an intensity that sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. As Rixa took her place on the throne, the room fell silent. All eyes turned toward her. Ethan stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. This was at the moment he would either make a difference or fail spectacularly. "You have returned, my queen," a deep voice echoed from the court. The speaker was a tall Zyran male, his skin a dark shade of blue, and his eyes burning with an unnatural brightness. "But you bring with you a human. Why should we allow this?" Ethan could feel the tension in the room like a physical weight. Every eye was on him now, scrutinizing him, judging him. Rixa, however, didn't flinch. She sat up straighter, her gaze steady, because she said, her voice cutting through the silence, "This human, Ethan, is the key to our future. It has a perspective none of you can understand." A murmur ran through the court. Some of the officials exchanged confused glances while others scoffed. "How can this creature," another voice sneered, "possibly understand the intricacies of Zyran politics? He is nothing more than a primitive human." Ethan clenched his fists. He'd expected resistance, but hearing the disdain in their voices made his stomach twist with anger. He wasn't a primitive. He wasn't weak. He had survived far more than these Zyran could even imagine. But before he could say anything, Rixa held up her hand. "You underestimate him," she said, her voice firm. Ethan has seen how humans adapt and survive, even in the face of overwhelming odds. His mind works in ways that none of you can comprehend. That is why we need him. The room fell silent again.
Hush.
Ethan could sense the growing skepticism, but Rixa's words carried weight. She was their queen. If she believed in him, that had to count for something. The High Court, however, wasn't easily swayed. They had their own agendas, their own alliances. Some seemed genuinely curious about Ethan, but others were clearly more concerned with their own power. One by one, they spoke. Humanity is a species that has barely left its own planet.
What?
Makes you think your creativity can solve anything here. The Zyran have thrived for centuries without your kind. Ethan's jaw clenched, but he stayed silent. This wasn't about his pride. It was about Rixa, about saving her empire. Rixa met his eyes. And for a moment, Ethan saw something in her gaze, something close to a challenge. She was giving him an opening, a chance to prove himself. Perhaps, Rixa continued, her voice unwavering, we can demonstrate what this human is capable of. She turned to Ethan, her eyes locking with his. We need to show them that humanity has something more to offer than just diplomacy and strategies. We need to show them how you think. Ethan's heart raced. Was she really asking him to speak? To stand before the most powerful beings in the Zyran Empire and prove that humanity had value? He wasn't sure if he was ready, but something inside him stirred. If he didn't try now, if he didn't step up, he would fail Rixa and himself. Cleared his throat and stepped forward, feeling all the eyes of the court on him. You're right, he said, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. May not be a Zyran, but I've seen what it takes for humans to survive. I've seen how we work together to find solutions, even when everything seems lost. He paused, gathering his thoughts. We might not have the grand technology you have, but we have resilience. We have the ability to think in ways that break the mold, to come up with creative solutions that others wouldn't see. He glanced at Rixa, who nodded encouragingly. Ethan's confidence grew as he spoke. When you face a problem, the easy solution is always to fight, to destroy, to maintain the status quo. But humans find ways to adapt, to change things from within, to make the impossible work. That's what I've learned in my time on Earth, and that's why I think I can help. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the court. I know I'm just one human, but that's all we need sometimes. One person who refuses to give up, who refuses to follow the old ways, to find a new path forward. There was a long pause. The court was silent, but there was something different. In the air now, a flicker of interest, a shift in the way they looked at him. Rixa smiled, a subtle, approving gesture. That's what I mean, she said, turning back to the court. This is why we need him.
Us?
Humanity knows how to fight for what matters. For the first time, some of the officials in the court nodded, their expressions softening. There was still a long way to go, but Ethan had done something. He had made them see that he wasn't just an outsider. He was part of something bigger. RYXA rose from her throne, her presence commanding once more. We will face the coming challenges together with humanity's creativity and Zyran strength. She turned to the court. Now we move forward together. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief as the room erupted into quiet murmurs. They weren't won over yet, but he had made the first step. He had shown them that humanity could offer more than they had ever imagined, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to change the future. As the court began to disperse, Rixa turned to him with a look of approval. You did well, she said quietly. Better than I expected. Ethan grinned. I guess I'm learning. From the best? She smiled back, her eyes softening. Let's hope it's enough. The real work begins now. Ethan walked through the halls of the Zyran Palace, his mind racing with the events that had just unfolded. The High Court had not been easily convinced, but Rixa had stood by him. He had spoken for the first time in front of the most powerful beings in the Empire, and for a brief moment, he had seen them reconsider their opinions about humanity. But as he followed Rixa down the corridors, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The court's approval wasn't enough to guarantee success. There were still powerful factions within the Empire that would oppose her, that would stop at nothing to destroy her. Reign And now, more than ever, Rixa needed allies. Don't get too comfortable, Rixa said, her voice cutting through Ethan's thoughts. The court is only one part of this. There are others who will test your loyalty. Ethan nodded, trying to steady his nerves. Who are these others? Are we talking about more members of your court? Rix's eyes narrowed slightly, her expression. Serious? No. There are outside factions, forces beyond the palace that don't want me in power, and they have the strength to make things difficult. If we want to win them over, we'll have to be strategic. They stopped in front of a large door and Rixa motioned for Ethan to follow her inside. The room was dimly lit, filled with strange devices that hummed and whirred in the background. The walls were lined with holographic screens that displayed maps, military positions, and political intelligence. This wasn't just the palace, it was the heart of the Empire's military operations. Rixa turned to face Ethan. This is Commander Veyr, one of my most trusted military leaders. He controls the fleets that protect Xyrexia. He is loyal to me, but the factions that want me out have their own commanders who will fight to stop us. Ethan looked at the tall Zyran standing across the room, a broad-shouldered figure with dark green skin and glowing red eyes. He was intimidating, but there was a quiet strength about him. Ethan knew that this was someone he couldn't afford to ignore. Veyr didn't speak immediately. Instead, he sized Ethan up with a careful gaze, his eyes narrowing slightly. So, you are the human. His voice was deep and low, with a hint of curiosity. What makes you think you can help us when we've been fighting for centuries? Ethan's heart skipped a beat, but he forced himself to meet the commander's gaze. I'm not here to tell you how to fight. I'm here to help you find a different way to win. Veyr's expression didn't change. He was silent for a long moment before he spoke again. You speak of change. But change is dangerous. It threatens everything we've fought for. Rixa stepped forward, her voice steady. We need to change, Veyr. If we continue down the path we're on, we risk losing everything. The Empire is fractured. If we don't unite now, we will fall. Veyr looked at her for a moment, considering her words. Then, to Ethan's surprise, he nodded. I will help you. For now, but don't think this means I trust your human. He gestured toward Ethan. If he proves himself, we will see. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and unease. It was a small victory, but it was a start. Rix's eyes flashed with gratitude, but she didn't comment. She turned to Veyr, her voice sharp. Good. We need your fleets, your power. There is no time to waste. We are at war, and the longer we wait, the harder it will be to act. Veyr nodded again, but Ethan could see the weight of his doubts. The commander wasn't fully convinced, and that was something they would have. To overcome, trust couldn't be forced. It had to be earned. As the meeting concluded, Rixa turned to Ethan. We've secured an ally in the military, but that's just the beginning. Now, we need to focus on the noble houses. They control much of the wealth and resources in the Empire. They hold the power to sway the people. Ethan raised an eyebrow. How do we approach them? These are powerful individuals, right? Will they even listen to me? Rixa smiled faintly. They will listen to me. But more importantly, they will listen to you. You're the key. You're the one who can offer them something they've never considered, a new way of thinking. Ethan wasn't sure what Rixa meant, but he followed her as they moved toward the next phase of their plan. The palace was vast, and every hallway seemed to lead to another secret, another hidden layer of intrigue. We walked in silence for a few minutes before Rixa spoke. Again, we are about to meet Lady Nyra, one of the most powerful women in the Empire. She controls the resources in the Eastern Territories. She is influential, wealthy, and ruthless. If we win her over, we will have the resources we need to challenge the factions who oppose us. Ethan felt a surge of nervousness. Lady Nyra sounded like someone who wouldn't be easily swayed. But he also realized that this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. The chance to show that humanity could think beyond brute force, that they could use diplomacy, creativity, and strategy to solve problems. As they entered a lavish chamber, Ethan couldn't help but be taken aback by the opulence of it all. Walls were lined with fine fabrics, and golden chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over everything. At the center of the room sat Lady Nyra, a tall Zyran with lavender skin and piercing blue eyes. She wore a flowing gown made of shimmering silk, and her presence filled the room. Rixa approached her with a nod of respect. "Lady Nyra," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "'Tis an honor." Lady Nyra stood and gave a small bow. "The honor is mine, Your Majesty." She turned her eyes to Ethan. "And this must be the human I've heard so much about. How curious." Ethan stepped forward, his nerves on edge. "Lady Nyra, it's a pleasure to meet you. I know I'm not from your world, but I hope we can find common ground." Nyra studied him for a moment, her gaze cold and calculating.
"Common ground."
"You are a human. I do not know what your people can offer that would be of interest to me." Rixa spoke up quickly. "Ethan has a way of seeing things differently. He has a mind that can find solutions where others see none." Nyra raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? And what solutions could you possibly offer? What could a human offer someone like me who has everything?" Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He had to prove himself. He had to show that humanity was more than just a curiosity. He looked Nyra in the eye and spoke clearly. "I understand that you hold great power and wealth, Lady Nyra," he said, his voice steady. "But power alone doesn't solve problems. The future of this empire is at stake. If you continue to cling to the old ways, you will lose everything you've built." Nyra didn't flinch at his words. "And what do you suggest, human? What is it that you think I should do?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "The empire needs unity. It needs change. If we continue to fight among ourselves, we will tear it apart. But if we work together, if we think beyond our own self-interest, we can create something stronger, something greater than what any of us could build alone." There was a long pause as Nyra considered his words. Ethan could tell she was intrigued, though she was hiding it well. After a moment, she gave a small nod. "Perhaps there is something to your words, human. I will listen. But remember, trust is earned, not given. If you fail to deliver, you will have nothing." Ethan felt a rush of relief. This was a victory, no matter how small. Lady Nyra had agreed to listen. Rixa turned to Ethan, a look of approval in her eyes. "Well done. You've made your first real ally. Now we move forward." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. The stakes were higher than ever. There was still much to be done, and many more challenges ahead. But for the first time since arriving on Xerxia, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity could make a difference in this war after all. The days following the meeting with Lady Nyra were tense. The palace hummed with preparations for the next phase of their strategy. Rixa had gathered her closest advisors, and together they had started to form an intricate web of alliances. Was still trying to grasp the complexities of the Zyran Empire, but every day he learned more. The political landscape was as treacherous as it was vast. It felt like they were constantly one step away from disaster. Despite the pressure, there was a strange sense of purpose in the air. For the first time, Ethan felt like he was truly part of something important. He wasn't just a human thrown into a foreign world. He was someone who could make a real impact. But there were still many hurdles to clear, and time was running out. The Zyran court was divided, and every decision they made had to be calculated carefully. If they made one wrong move, the empire could crumble under the weight of rebellion. One afternoon, Grixa called Ethan to her chambers. It was a place filled with the quiet power of the Queen room that mirrored her strength, with large windows overlooking the city of Zalera. The view was breathtaking, and for a moment, Ethan lost himself in the vast landscape. The sprawling city seemed to go on forever, its towering spires and glowing lights a testament to the empire's grandeur. But there was an underlying tension. In the air things were changing, and they were no longer in control. "Ethan," Rixa said, breaking his thoughts, "I need to know if you are ready for what comes next. The time for words is over. Now we must act." Ethan turned to face her, nodding slowly. He knew what she meant. The pieces were in place, but they needed to make a move, a bold one. This time, there was no going back. "I'm ready," he replied, his voice firm. Rixa regarded him with a sharp gaze, her eyes assessing as though she could see straight through him. "Good, because what I am about to ask of you won't be easy. It will test you in ways you cannot imagine. But I believe you are the key to turning this around." Ethan felt a nervous chill creep up his spine. Rixa had always been direct, but this felt different. It was clear she wasn't just speaking about tactics or diplomacy. This was about more than winning the battle. It was about securing the future of her empire. Trust in him had deepened, and now it came with a weight he hadn't expected. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "There is a faction within the Empire, the Brotherhood of Shadows. They are a group of powerful and secretive Zyran who control the dark economy of the Empire. They deal in weapons, smuggling, and covert operations. They have enough influence to topple me, and they are growing bolder by the day." Rixa paused, her fingers lightly tracing the edges of her throne. "We need them on our side." He furrowed his brow. "So you want me to negotiate with criminals? These people don't exactly strike me as the kind who care about diplomacy." Rixa nodded. "Exactly. That's why I need you. You're not a part of their world. Come from a place they can't predict. If you approach them, they will see you as an opportunity, someone they can manipulate, someone they think they can control. But you will use that perception against them. They won't expect you to challenge them, and that's exactly why you are the right person for the job." The weight of her words sank in. This was risky. He wasn't sure he had the right skills to pull this off. But if they didn't succeed here, everything they had worked for would collapse. If they didn't get the Brotherhood on their side, there wouldn't be enough power to fight the rebellion, to protect the Empire. "I understand," Ethan said finally, even though doubts churned inside him. "I'll do it. I don't know what I'm walking into." "You'll be fine," Rixa assured him, her voice steady. "Just remember, you're not here to fight them. You're here to outthink them." The meeting, the Brotherhood's headquarters, was hidden in plain sight, a seemingly ordinary building in the middle of the city. Its walls adorned with statues and symbols that seemed harmless at first glance. But underneath the surface, the air was thick with secrecy. Ethan could feel it the moment he stepped inside. Rixa had arranged for a safe, meeting with one of the Brotherhood's highest-ranking members, Arhan, a dark-skinned Zyran with a commanding presence. His eyes gleamed with suspicion as he examined Ethan, who stood in the middle of the room, feeling very much like a fish out of water. Ethan couldn't help but notice the way the air shifted when Arhan spoke. The room felt colder, more dangerous, as if Arhan's very words could alter the fate of entire systems. "So, you are the human," Arhan said, his voice low and laced with amusement. "I must admit I did not expect someone like you to walk into my domain, but Rixa trusts you, and that counts for something." Ethan met Arhan's eyes, keeping his expression neutral. "I'm not here to waste your time. Rixa needs your support. The Empire is on the verge of collapse, and we cannot afford to remain divided." Arhan chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "Do you think that you can just waltz in here and demand my loyalty? You may be Rixa's pet, but I don't bend to anyone's will, especially not a human." Ethan's jaw clenched. This was exactly what he had expected: intimidation, power plays, and attempts to undermine him. But he wasn't about to back down. Not when so much was at stake. "I'm not demanding anything," Ethan said, his voice firm. "I'm offering you a deal. The Brotherhood's resources, its ships, its weaponry, its power can all be at your disposal. But you'll need to take a risk. I can give you access to the Queen's inner circle, her plans. All I ask is that you join our side in this fight." Arhan stared at him, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, the silence stretched out. Ethan could feel the tension building, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Finally, Arhan spoke. "I see. You're offering me something of great value. But why should I trust you, human? You're just a pawn in this game. What makes... You think you have the power to sway me?" Ethan took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. "Because I'm not asking for your loyalty. I'm asking for your partnership. I've seen how the Zyran operate. You're not in this for a throne or for control. You're in it for survival. And you know as well as I do that Rixa is the only one who can keep this empire from falling. Apart. Join us, and you'll have a stake in the future." There was a moment of silence as Arhan considered his words. Then he leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving Ethan's face. "I'll agree to your terms," Arhan said slowly, "but only because I believe you're right. This empire is dying, and if I don't act now, I'll have nothing left to rule." Ethan exhaled in relief, though he knew this was just one battle in a long war. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "I'll make sure you get what you need." The aftermath: by the time Ethan returned to the palace, Rixa was already preparing for the next stage of the conflict. The alliance with the Brotherhood had been secured, but the stakes had just risen higher. The rebellion was growing stronger, and time was running out. The factions that had once seemed so distant were now closing in. Rixa knew that the final confrontation was fast approaching. As Ethan entered her chambers, Rixa turned to face him, her eyes burning with determination. "Well done, Ethan," she said quietly. "You've done what no one else could. Brotherhood is with us now, but we can't stop here." Ethan nodded, but a sense of unease lingered. This was only the beginning, and he knew that the real challenge was still ahead. The future of the Zyran Empire and humanity's place within was uncertain. "We'll be ready," Ethan said, though he couldn't shake the feeling that their next steps would be even more dangerous than they had imagined.